Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been with a law enforcement agency since I finished school, working my way through different positions. Started as a dispatcher, then moved to the records department, and eventually landed in my current role, which is kind of a mix of information technology and equipment testing. I test and write reports on all the non-tactical and non-ballistic items we use. My biggest responsibility is the vehicles. After years of sitting at desks and working behind the scenes, I finally found something I actually enjoyed doing. The testing keeps me busy and gets me out of the office. Plus, I get to work with different officers and see how things actually function in the field instead of just reading about it in manuals. Right now, we're testing out new back seats for the patrol cruisers. If you've ever seen the inside of a police car, you know the back seats are just hard plastic. They're incredibly uncomfortable, but that's not really the point. They're designed to be easy to clean and nearly impossible for someone to hide anything in. There's no cushions or crevices where someone could stash drugs or weapons or whatever else. A new vendor contacted us about this material they developed for the back seats. It's supposed to be non-stick and has some cushioning underneath. They installed it in one of our vehicles, and I called up the officer who handles all the tactical and ballistic equipment purchases to schedule testing. The city guidelines say we have to test everything for at least 12 hours on top of whatever testing the manufacturer already did. I set things up with the officer to spend parts of 2 days just driving around. We'd alternate between me sitting in the back while handcuffed and him sitting back there without cuffs. I was simulating a detained person in custody, and he was playing the role of a witness being transported. We couldn't actually handcuff him for the simulation because that would get us in legal trouble, so that worked out fine. The first day went okay, but we both agreed it felt unrealistic. Nobody sits in the back of a patrol car for more than 30 to 45 minutes in real situations. It virtually never happens. Also, the new material is just a denser version of a yoga mat, so there's not much padding at all. On the second day, I brought a pillow from home for my back. I have fused vertebrae, and sitting on that thing for hours was killing me. We were almost done with the testing when lunchtime rolled around. The officer parked in front of this restaurant and let me out, uncuffing my wrists. I stretched and made this joke about him being my butler and asking him to get the door so we could go eat. It was just stupid humor between us. We'd been stuck together for 2 days straight doing this ridiculous testing, and we were both tired and hungry. Unfortunately, some woman was walking by and heard me. She absolutely lost it. Started screaming at the top of her lungs about how criminals like me don't get to order cops around. She kept yelling that I was obviously a criminal and needed to be put back in handcuffs immediately. The officer tried explaining to her that I worked with him and it was just a joke. She wasn't having it. Kept screaming and making a scene right there on the sidewalk. I pulled out my department identification and showed it to her, trying to calm the situation down. She looked at my identification card, looked back at me, and told me I must have stolen it. She said there was no way someone like me worked for law enforcement. She actually pulled out her phone and called 911 right there. She demanded that the chief of police come out immediately and explain what was happening. Obviously, the chief wasn't going to respond to something like that. Instead, the watch commander came out to deal with the situation. He looked annoyed when he saw us, probably because he had actual work to do. The watch commander explained the whole situation to the woman. He told her we were conducting equipment testing and that I was a department employee. He even confirmed my identification. Then he turned to me and the other officer and scolded us for making jokes while in an official capacity, even during testing. He said it looked unprofessional and we should have known better. We got our wrists slapped. The woman got her explanation. Everyone could move on. But she was absolutely furious. Started yelling about how we should be arrested and terminated on the spot. She said it was unacceptable that we were making jokes and wasting taxpayer money. She demanded the watch commander fire us immediately. The watch commander kept his cool and explained again that we were doing our jobs. that the testing was legitimate and necessary, and that nobody was getting fired. He told her she needed to calm down and move along. She wound up and smacked the watch commander right across the face. Just hold off and hit a police officer. Then she started screaming at him to do his job properly. Everything happened really fast after that. The watch commander stepped back, the other officer moved in, and within seconds the woman was in handcuffs. The real kind, not the testing kind. She was screaming the entire time about police brutality and how she was going to sue everyone. They put her in the back of the patrol car we'd been testing. She kept kicking the new seat material and screaming. I had to document it all for my report since it was technically part of the testing period. The officer looked at me and shook his head. We never did get lunch that day. Had to spend the rest of the afternoon doing paperwork about the incident. The woman ended up getting charged with assault on a police officer. My wife and I have been riding motorcycles together for years. We both work demanding jobs during the week, her as a nurse and me in construction management, so having this outlet together has been incredible for us. 2 seasons ago, we got into track days. It's renting time at a racetrack to push your bike in a controlled environment without worrying about traffic, cops, or some idiot texting while driving. We go once or twice a month during the season with the same group of friends who've become like family. The track we frequent offers garage rentals. They're not cheap, over $50 per day, but they come with actual walls, shade from the brutal summer sun, electrical outlets for our tire warmers, and built-in air lines for adjusting tire pressure or running pneumatic tools. After spending a few events baking in the sun while trying to work on our bikes in the open paddock, we decided the garage was worth every penny. At the start of this season, we booked the same garage for most of our dates. It's right next to our friend's garage, which means we can hang out between sessions without hauling our stuff across the paddock. This weekend was supposed to be a regular track day on Saturday, followed by an actual race event on Sunday and Monday. We only signed up for Saturday since racing isn't really our thing. We just like improving our skills and having fun without the pressure of competition. We rolled up to the track that Saturday morning around 7, pulling our enclosed trailer with both bikes inside. The sun was already getting warm and I was looking forward to getting set up in the shade. When we came around to our assigned spot, I immediately noticed something was wrong. There were 2 trucks and a trailer taking up the parking spaces in front of our garage. Not just near it, actually blocking the roll-up door. And through the open door I could see people inside moving around. I parked on the paddock road and walked over. Inside my rented garage were 4 guys unloading race bikes, tools, and equipment. One of them had even rolled out a decorative rug on the concrete floor. A rug? In a garage I was paying for. The closest guy looked up when I approached. I told him I thought there had been a mistake and that this was our garage. He said they were just setting up for the race weekend and that they had the garage reserved for Sunday and Monday. I explained that today was Saturday and we had it booked for today. The apparent leader of the group walked over. He was probably in his mid-40s, wearing expensive leathers with a lot of sponsor patches. He confirmed they had the garage for the race days but said they were just using it today to test and tune their bikes. He explained they needed to dial everything in before qualifying tomorrow. I told him I understood, but we had reserved and paid for this garage for today. He then said they had a garage booked at the far end of the track for today and that it was okay, we could go use that one. He said it like the problem was already solved. The casual way he offered up his solution made my blood pressure spike. I told him no, that didn't work for us because we booked this garage since it was next to our friends and we'd had it reserved for weeks. He complained that they'd already unloaded half their stuff and it would be a huge pain to move everything. I looked back at the paddock road where our trailer was completely blocking traffic. The other riders were already having to navigate around it. I explained that I needed to unload right now because we were blocking the road. He told me to just give them like 30 minutes to finish unloading and get organized, then they'd think about moving. I noticed the reservation sheet posted on the garage wall. Every garage had one showing who rented it for which days. Our names were clearly written for Saturday. I pointed out that he'd seen the reservation on the wall and knew this garage was booked for today. He shrugged and admitted the spot they got for today was way down at the end and not convenient at all. He said this one was better positioned. I asked if he'd just decided to take ours anyway. He explained they were a race team and needed access to power and air for the whole weekend. He said it made sense for them to set up once and stay put. My wife had joined me by this point and I could see her jaw tightening. She's usually more patient than me, but this was testing both of us. She told him he had a garage he paid for and to go use that one. He repeated that it wasn't convenient and that theirs was fine for race day when they were just doing quick changes between sessions, but for today they needed more space and better access. I told him that wasn't my problem. He said not to be difficult because they were already set up here. I'd had enough at that point. I walked back to our truck, got in, and repositioned it directly behind their trailer. I pulled up close enough that their tailgate couldn't open, meaning they couldn't lower their ram to unload the rest of their bikes. Then I started unloading our gear into the garage. The leader came storming over and demanded to know what I was doing and told me to move my truck. I explained I was unloading my stuff into the garage I paid for. He pointed out I was blocking their trailer. I agreed and said he was in our garage, so I guessed we both had problems. One of his friends came over and tried a different approach. He asked me to be reasonable and explained they had expensive race bikes and needed the proper setup. My wife told him so did we, and that's why we reserved this garage. I continued pulling our bikes out, then our stands, our tools, our cooler. I set everything up exactly where we'd planned. My wife started arranging our tire warmers and plugging them in. The leader stood there fuming and called the whole situation ridiculous. He accused me of being selfish. I pointed out that he took a garage that wasn't his, saw our names on the reservation sheet, and set up anyway. But somehow, I was the selfish one. He threatened to talk to track management about this. I told him that was a great idea and suggested that while he was there, he should ask them why their reservation system exists if people can just ignore it. He stormed off toward the office. His friends started reluctantly packing their stuff back up. The rug got rolled up, tools went back into boxes, and they started wheeling their bikes out. About 20 minutes later, the leader came back even angrier. A track official was with him. The official said he understood there had been a confusion about the garage. I told him there was no confusion and explained that we reserved it for today. They reserved it for tomorrow and Monday, and they decided to use both. The official said that's what he'd explained to the leader and that the reservations were clearly marked. He told the leader he had access to his garage starting tomorrow morning at 6. The leader insisted they needed it today. The official said then he should have booked it for today and that the garage he had for today was available now with the same amenities as this one. The leader complained it was at the far end. The official confirmed that, yes, that's the one he reserved. The official walked away without further discussion. The leader stared at me like I'd personally ruined his entire weekend. He told me I was going to regret this. I said I doubted it. They finished packing up and moved out. It took them almost an hour to relocate everything to their actual garage. Every time they walked past with another load, the leader shot me dirty looks. We had an amazing day on the track. Between sessions, we hung out with our friends in the neighboring garage, exactly like we'd planned. Our bikes ran great, we improved our lap times, and the whole day went smoothly. At the end of the day, when we were packing up, one of the guys from the race team walked over. Not the leader, one of the younger ones. He apologized for what happened that morning and admitted their team captain could be intense about this stuff. My wife told him it was fine and said she hoped their testing went okay. He said it was fine and that honestly, the captain was out of line. He admitted the captain knew that garage was reserved, but convinced himself we'd just let them have it. The next morning, even though we weren't at the track, our friends texted us photos. During qualifying, the race team's captain crashed his bike in turn 3. Nothing serious, just damaged fairings and a bruised ego. I'm 26 years old and I'm a police officer who works the night shift, 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning. The schedule can be rough sometimes, but I've gotten used to it over the years. I've been on the force for about 4 years now, and before that I spent 2 years going through the academy and doing ride-alongs. My dad was a cop for 30 years before he retired, so I guess you could say it runs in the family. He told me that being an officer meant dealing with all kinds of people, good and bad, and that patience was just as important as any weapon on your belt. On this day, I was in a training class scheduled from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. Standard uniform attire for classes are the blue polo shirt with department logo on the chest and khaki pants. I had my service weapon and badge on the right side of my hip and my handcuffs, extra magazine, and radio on the left side of my hip. The class was about new de-escalation techniques, which felt a bit ironic considering what was about to happen. When the class ended, I went to my local supermarket known for low prices and blue shirts to get some things for dinner. I was planning to make some pasta and needed a few ingredients. While I'm there browsing the aisles, a little kid who looked around 9 or 10 years old walked up to me. He asked me if I was a police officer while pointing to my service weapon. I said yes, and his face lit up. He said he wanted to be a police officer when he grew up with so much excitement in his voice. His eyes were practically glowing. When I'm in uniform, I carry around little plastic badges for when I run into kids. My dad used to do the same thing when I was young, and I remember how special it made me feel. So I stood there for a few minutes talking to the kid while his mother was shopping in the aisle. I asked him what his favorite superhero was and why he wanted to be a cop. He told me all about how he wanted to help people and catch bad guys. When they were about to leave, I gave the kid the plastic badge and told him he was now a junior officer. He smiled big and gave me a hug. He was so excited and started singing in a tune about being a cop and getting all the bad guys. His mom thanked me and they walked off. Moments like that remind me why I chose this job. I went back to my shopping. I knelt down to look at some chips I was thinking of getting when I heard someone clear their throat behind me. I turned and saw a lady who looked to be in her early to mid-40s. The lady looked at me and I went back to looking at the chips, figuring she just needed to get past me. She asked me if I was going to help her or not. She said she needed to know where something was. I cut her off and told her I didn't work there and that she'd have to find an employee. She told me not to lie to her. She said I was dressed like an employee and that I obviously worked there. Keep in mind, I'm not wearing the yellow vest most employees wear. I'm just wearing a blue polo shirt and khakis. I stood up and turned to her, showing my department logo on my shirt and pointing to my badge on my hip. I told her again that I didn't work there and that I was an off-duty officer. She asked me why I was lying and why I had a gun. She said I wasn't supposed to have a gun while working and demanded to know where my manager was. I sighed. I've dealt with many difficult people on duty, and I knew where this was going. My training kicked in, and I tried to remain calm. I told her once more that I didn't work there and that my supervisor was Sergeant Dan. I explained that I did not work for the store. At this point, she looked mad and was staring at me like I was the biggest liar in the world. Then she yelled loud enough that people in nearby aisles turned to look. She called me a lying little jerk and said that all people my age were just lazy and never wanted to help anyone. She demanded my manager right then. I told her again that I didn't work for the business. I even pulled out my credentials, which is a photo identification card of me in uniform with the department name and logo, and has the word officer under my photo. I keep my driver's license and debit card in my credentials since I have to have them on me at all times when I'm in public. Just makes it easier to keep everything together. She snatched my credentials out of my hand and stuffed them into her purse. She said they were fake and that she was taking them to show to my manager and the real police. I told her she had just committed simple robbery and needed to return my credentials now, or I would be forced to place her under arrest. In my state, simple robbery is the taking of anything of value which is in the immediate control of another with force but not armed with a dangerous weapon. This crime is a felony and punishable by up to 7 years in prison. She said I couldn't arrest her because I wasn't a cop. I removed my radio from my hip and told the dispatcher that I needed units to my location for a simple robbery. Dispatcher acknowledged, and I heard 3 units say they were on their way. My heart was pounding now, not from fear, but from the absurdity of the situation. I placed my radio back on my hip and told her she was now being placed under arrest. When I went to grab her left wrist, she slapped me with her right hand and yelled at me not to touch her She screamed for help and said she was being attacked. I yelled at her that she had now committed battery on a police officer and told her to stop resisting or she would go to the ground. I noticed people were now forming around us, wondering what was going on. I heard on the radio that the units were on scene and asking for my location. I pressed the radio button and gave them my aisle number. A few moments later, 3 fully uniformed officers showed up. The first officer asked me what happened. I gave him the rundown while she was spewing all sorts of lies about how I threatened her with my gun and how I had attacked her to the second officer. The first and second officers stayed with us while the third officer went to the security office to play back the cameras. While waiting on the third officer, I was chatting with the other 2 officers. I went through the police academy with one of them. We were talking about the training class I just finished when we heard the third officer saying over the radio to place her in handcuffs and arrest her. The 2 officers did so. When they were placing her in handcuffs and reading her rights, she started struggling. She said she was innocent and that they should arrest me for pretending to be a cop and attacking her. The first officer told her they had her on video and that she'd been lying to them the whole time. He said she was under arrest for simple robbery, battery on a police officer, disturbing the peace, and now resisting arrest. The second officer told her she had the right to remain silent and that he highly suggested she use it. The third officer walked up to us with a copy of the camera footage and all 3 walked her to the back seat of the first officer's car. She was screaming the whole way about lawsuits and how she was going to have all our jobs. I spent the next few minutes explaining to the sergeant on duty who showed up about what happened, filling out a statement of the incident, and having photographs taken. The photographs are standard procedure whenever we arrest someone for battery on a police officer. The sergeant just shook his head and told me this was probably the dumbest arrest he'd seen in his 20 years on the force. Once everything was said and done, my credentials were returned to me, she was taken to jail, and I went home. I found out later that she was also charged with filing a false police report after she tried to press charges against me at the station. She has a history of this kind of behavior at various stores around town. I'm never stopping at that business again when I'm wearing my training class uniform. From now on, I'm changing before I do any shopping. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.